Good morning, Alex and friends. I'm Grace. Today is Friday, October 31st, 2025, and you're listening to Alex's News. The high in Riverside today is expected to reach 84.9 degrees Fahrenheit, with a low dipping to 56.9 degrees overnight, so plan your costumes and candy hauls accordingly. Happy Halloween! Coming up, we'll examine President Trump's push to resume American nuclear testing for the first time in over 3 decades, and uncover the reasons behind the latest recall of the blood pressure medication Prazosin over concerns about nitrosamine impurities. Plus, other key stories on global events, health updates, and more. All this and more on Alex's News. Stay tuned. Good morning, folks. We start today's top story with a bombshell announcement from President Trump that's shaking up global security. Just yesterday, he called for restarting U.S. nuclear weapons testing after more than 3 decades without them. Joining me now from the studio to break this down is our national security correspondent, Ethan. Ethan, this comes right before his big meeting with China's President Xi in Dubai. Walk us through what Trump actually said.
Absolutely, Grace. According to reporting from the Associated Press, Trump posted on his Truth Social platform from Dubai, saying, quote, "I have instructed the Department of War to start testing our nuclear weapons on an equal basis. That process will begin immediately," end quote. He justified it by claiming other countries are testing and that the U.S. has more nuclear weapons than anyone. But right off the bat, there's some confusion there, like calling it the Department of War, which is an old name from before 1947 for what we now know as the Department of Defense. In reality, nuclear testing falls under the Department of Energy and its National Nuclear Security Administration, or NNSA, which handles the stockpile.
That sounds like a real throwback term. And immediate? Is this policy shift as sudden as it seems, especially with the timing tied to his summit with Xi?
It's got everyone on edge, no doubt. The Associated Press, as covered by News Channel 10 in Amarillo, Texas, and PBS NewsHour, notes this came amid tensions like Russia's war in Ukraine and North Korea's missile advances. Trump might be using this to strengthen his hand in talks on trade, Taiwan, and arms control with China. But experts say it's more rhetoric than reality so far, with no actual steps taken as of today, October 31st, 2025.
Let's clarify the history for our viewers who might not know the full backstory. The U.S. hasn't tested live nukes in 33 years. How did we get to this moratorium, and what does it mean to restart?
Great question, Grace. As detailed in those AP stories from PBS NewsHour and Military News, the U.S. kicked off the atomic age with the Trinity test on July 16, 1945, in Alamogordo, New Mexico. From there, we did 1,030 nuclear tests until September 23, 1992, at sites like the Nevada National Security Site, about 65 miles northwest of Las Vegas. That last one was underground, codenamed Divider. Early tests were even atmospheric, like Operation Crossroads in 1946 at Bikini Atoll, exposing ships and people to fallout, which led to health issues for downwinders or folks affected by radiation drift.
Atmospheric tests sound terrifying. So why stop? And what's kept us from testing since?
The moratorium started under President George H.W. Bush in 1992, right after the Soviet Union fell, and President Bill Clinton extended it. In 1996, we signed the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT, which bans all explosions, though the Senate hasn't ratified it. Instead, we've used the Stockpile Stewardship Program with supercomputer simulations and subcritical tests that don't cause full explosions. It's kept our arsenal of about 5,225 warheads ready, per the Arms Control Association and Stockholm International Peace Research Institute, as cited in AP reporting. Russia actually has more, at 5,580, and together they hold nearly 90% of the world's 12,000 or so.
Trump claims others are testing to justify this. Is that accurate, or is he stretching the facts?
He's testing the limits of that claim, pun intended. According to analyses from The Washington Post and CSIS.org, relayed through AP and PBS, No major rivals have done full explosive tests recently. Russia hasn't since 1990, though they've tested delivery systems like the Burevestnik cruise missile, which the Kremlin says isn't a nuclear test. China last exploded one in July 29, 1996, and North Korea's most recent was in September 3, 2017, their sixth and biggest. Others like India and Pakistan stopped after 1998. So Trump's point seems to lean on old events or non-explosive activities, not a current arms race trigger.
What about the bigger picture? Could this spark a chain reaction internationally? And what's the logistical hurdle?
It's a nuclear domino effect waiting to happen, Grace. Experts in the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists, via AP, say it's not needed scientifically. Our models work fine. But restarting could erode the CTBT's norms with 196 signatories and hurt non-proliferation efforts. Logistically, the Nevada site is dormant, needing 2 to 4 years to prep even one test, involving 20,000 people and major upgrades per Los Alamos National Lab and Congressional Research Service estimates. Plus, legal hoops like environmental reviews under NEPA and congressional funding are required.
Reactions pouring in already. What's the word from lawmakers and world leaders?
Democrats, especially Nevada senators, are blasting it for environmental risks, as reported by the Las Vegas Sun. Republicans are split on boosting deterrence. CTBTO's Robert Floyd condemned it yesterday, per ctbto.org, saying it undermines detection systems. Allies like the UK and France, who've ratified the CTBT, worry it'll unravel the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. No word yet from Xi or Putin, but Arms Control Association's Daryl Kimball calls it one of the most consequential moves imaginable.
Whew, that's a lot to unpack on this Halloween morning, Ethan. Thanks for the thorough rundown and keeping us from any real frights here.
My pleasure, Grace.
Turning to our second story this morning, viewers may want to check their medicine cabinets if they're taking certain blood pressure meds. We have a major recall that's just heating up, and joining me to break it down is our health reporter, Chloe. Chloe, good morning. What's the latest on this Prazosin situation?
Good morning, Grace. That's right, it's a pressing issue for folks managing hypertension, pun intended. According to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, they've classified a voluntary nationwide recall by Teva Pharmaceuticals USA as Class 2, which means the health risks are considered low, but still worth acting on. This started with Teva initiating the recall on October 7th, and the FDA enforcing it just days ago, on October 24th and 25th. It affects over 580,000 bottles of Prazosin hydrochloride capsules in 1 mg, 2 mg, and 5 mg strengths.
Wow, that's a lot of bottles. For those not familiar, what exactly is Prazosin used for, and why the recall now?
Prazosin is an alpha-1 adrenergic blocker, which basically relaxes blood vessels to lower blood pressure and can help with urinary issues and things like benign prostatic hyperplasia. It's also prescribed off-label for nightmares and sleep disturbances in people with post-traumatic stress disorder. The problem is contamination with something called N-nitroso-prazosin impurity C, a nitrosamine impurity that's classified as a probable human carcinogen. As reporting from the Associated Press via Yahoo News details, this impurity was found at levels exceeding the FDA's acceptable intake limits, determined using the Carcinogenic Potency Categorization Approach, or CPCA for short. That's a method that sorts nitrosamines by their cancer-causing potential.
Nitrosamines sound familiar from past drug scares. Can you explain how this ties in? And is this the same as those older recalls?
Great question, Grace. Nitrosamines are compounds that can form during manufacturing or storage if things aren't tightly controlled, and they've been a thorn in the side of blood pressure meds since 2018. But this isn't exactly like the angiotensin receptor blocker recalls for drugs like valsartan or losartan. Newsweek and Health.com have clarified that while media sometimes lumps them together, the Prazosin issue is specific. It's an N-nitroso-prazosin impurity C, a nitrosamine drug substance-related impurity unique to prazosin's chemical pathway, not from tainted active ingredients like what hit those ARBs from suppliers such as Zhejiang Huahai Pharmaceuticals back then. TheHealthSite.com, in a piece by Muskan Gupta, notes it's related to NDMA compounds but distinct.
So, details on the affected products? Who made and distributed them?
Teva, based in Parsippany, New Jersey, manufactured them, with Amerisource Health Services as the distributor, per AP reporting through the JC Post from Washington, D.C. The scope is huge, more than 580,844 bottles nationwide, in package sizes like 100 count, 250 count, 500 count, and 1,000 count. Specific lots under FDA enforcement report numbers D010-42026 for 1 mg, D010-52026 for 2 mg, and D010-62026 for 5 mg. For example, the 1 mg has 181,659 bottles, with lots like 3010544A expiring this October, up to 3010701A in August 2026. 2 mg impacts 291,512 bottles, lots from 3010343A this October to 3010654A in February 2027. 5 mg affects 107,673 bottles, like 3010430A next month to 3010703A in February 2027.
And the risks? Should people panic?
No panic needed, but caution, yes. The FDA says immediate risks are low, like temporary or reversible effects, with only a remote chance of serious issues, such as gastrointestinal upset. Long-term, though, prolonged exposure could raise cancer risks, similar to estimates from the 2018 valsartan recalls, where high doses over 4 years might add 1 case per 8,000 users, according to Everyday Health and Forbes. LiveMint.com and Cardiovascular Business, citing FDA data, say concentrations exceeded CPCA limits, which aim for a 1 in 100,000 lifetime risk based on 70 years of daily exposure, with acceptable intakes from 26.5 nanograms per day for the potent ones to 1,500. Patients shouldn't stop abruptly, as that could spike blood pressure, leading to strokes or heart attacks, far riskier than the impurity. Check lot numbers and expirations, talk to your pharmacist or doctor for alternatives, and report issues via FDA MedWatch.
This fits a bigger pattern, right? Walk us through that history briefly.
Absolutely. It's like a sequel in the nitrosamine saga. It kicked off in July 2018 with valsartan recalls for NDMA from major pharmaceuticals and Zaman Corporation. Then October for irbesartan by Seagen and Aurobindo due to NDEA. November for valsartan/NDEA by Teva and Mylan. January 2019 for more irbesartan. February for losartan by McLeod's with NDEA, March expansions for NMBA and losartan, and even 2021 irbesartan by Lupin for N-nitrosoarbesartan. Sources like ConsumerSafety.org, Healthline.com, and the Washington Post chronicle how manufacturing changes, solvent reuse, and API contamination led to FDA import alerts, warning letters, and new testing like liquid chromatography high-resolution mass spectrometry. For Prazosin, it's CGMP deviations in manufacturing or storage, per FDA enforcement reports, without public details on exact fixes.
Any legal fallout or what to do next?
Litigation is brewing, mirroring the ARB cases. Product liability suits are consolidating in New Jersey's multi-district litigation, with plaintiffs claiming cancers from long exposure. The first valsartan bellwether trial happened last month in September 2025, as noted by OALlaw.com and Trustwell Law. Prazosin cases could follow if harm links emerge. CBS News and Fox 32 Chicago stress that high blood pressure hits millions, so stick to monitored treatments. For disposal, return bottles to pharmacies safely. Teva's site has verification, and FDA's database lists safe alternatives.
Chloe, Thanks for unpacking this recall so thoroughly. It's a reminder to stay vigilant with our meds. Back to you in the studio.
You're welcome, Grace. Stay healthy out there.
Here are some other headlines. The Department of Health and Human Services is proposing a pair of rules that could put a hard stop on gender-affirming care for transgender youth nationwide. One draft would nix Medicaid reimbursement for patients under 18 and block CHIP funding for those under 19. A second, broader proposal would cut off all Medicaid and Medicare dollars to any hospital that provides gender-affirming medical care to minors, an administrative move with major pulse points, since most hospitals run on that federal lifeblood. The rules are expected to be published in November for public comment. Supporters say it's about setting standards. Critics warn it could effectively shutter access everywhere, regardless of whether families use public or private insurance. For many providers, that's not just a policy pill to swallow, it's a financial flatline. A separate rulebook rewrite could reshape the safety net. The Social Security Administration is advancing changes that would tighten eligibility for disability benefits, especially by dialing down the role age plays in decisions. That could hit older, blue-collar workers hardest, people who often find it toughest to switch gears late in their careers. Analyses suggest new approvals could fall by as much as 20% overall, and up to 30% for older applicants. Even a 10% trim could mean roughly 750,000 people lose access over a decade. The administration argues the program must be modernized to protect its long-term solvency. Critics counter that the cuts would leave many Americans out in the cold, turning the safety net into more of a tightrope. In Silicon Valley, OpenAI has rebooted its operating system, corporately speaking, becoming a for-profit public benefit corporation under a deal with California's Attorney General. The agreement keeps its headquarters in state and requires the company to give at least 3 weeks' notice before major structural or mission changes. A newly formed OpenAI Foundation will hold the reins, including appointing board members, and a safety committee empowered to pause new AI model rollouts. Admirers say the move lets the company raise capital at the speed of compute. Skeptics say the fine print is fuzzy, warning the nonprofit's control could be binary in name only. With a potential IPO on the horizon as early as 2027, the question is whether guardrails will keep pace with the horsepower. On California roads, a sobriety check for the system itself. An investigation finds the state's laws and enforcement against repeat drunk drivers often run on fumes, with some offenders racking up case counts like mileage. In California, DUI typically doesn't rise to a felony until a fourth offense within 10 years, unless there's injury, and requirements like ignition interlock devices are inconsistently applied. The report comes amid a more than 50% rise in alcohol-related roadway deaths over the past decade, a curve far steeper than the national average. Cases like a Fresno woman with 16 DUIs and a tragic fatal crash tied to a repeat offender are putting the pedal to the metal on calls for reform that previously stalled. And at San Francisco International Airport, British journalist Sami Hamdi remains in ICE custody after his visa was revoked, with officials citing statements made after the October 7, 2023 Hamas attacks. His wife says she's been largely kept in the dark, calling the allegations distorted and politically charged. Supporters frame the detention as a free speech fender bender with the First Amendment. The government says it's about national security. Hamdi's legal team has filed a habeas petition, as the case tests the runway between speech and status at the border. That's all we have for now. Today's episode was made by Alexander King with GPT-5, Gemini Pro 2.5, Gemini Flash 2.5, and Google Cloud Text-to-Speech. I hope you have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow, Alex.